So what I'm discovering is that I'm really on a mission here. I feel like the mission for us as Bitcoiners, and for me as a financial coach, having done financial coaching for 17 plus years, is to bring personal finance and the FIRE movement together with Bitcoin. So I think that, an accurate description of what I'm doing are kind of like fireside Bitcoin chats or something like that. I'm just kind of toying around with that idea right now because I think the big, there are criticisms that I have of sort of both sides of the aisle. I have criticisms of the FIRE movement. I have criticisms of the Bitcoin movement. And I've been in this very unique position over the last 12 years, especially since I've been into Bitcoin, of being a financial coach, understanding the inner workings of the financial system, coaching my clients through how to win with money, in a kind of more Dave Ramsey-ish fashion, while at the same time growing in my understanding of Bitcoin as what I believe, what many believe, is going to be the new backbone of the financial system. And how the dollar ultimately is going to be kind of a layer two, I think. It's kind of a thought experiment that I'm running through right now. But I think what I'm trying to do with this channel really is just have conversations about this. So if you are, so again, my mission is to bring the personal finance and FIRE movements together with the Bitcoin movement, because at the end of the day, anyone who is trying to adhere to the financial independence, retire early movement or the Bitcoin movement, our goals are really the same. Whether it's retire early, the retire early part of the financial independence movement, or it's the, save the money, save the world, or change the money, save the world on the Bitcoin side of things. Ultimately, what we're looking for that, it kind of melds together is, financial freedom, some kind of financial independence. Now, does that mean that you retire early and you just sit on a beach and drink, whatever beverage? Not necessarily. It doesn't really matter, So these thought experiments, and by the way, I'm in Brian Harrington's, I'm a member of his YouTube channel, which gets me into the Discord chat, and just some amazing conversations that are happening in there. So I totally invite you to join us all in there. There's another gentleman named James Rosenthal who's in that group as well. There's some great people in there, but we had a conversation the other day, and they were just sort of asking me to unpack my experience, particularly as a financial coach, as someone who, I paid off $174,000 worth of debt in 2.5 years following Dave Ramsey's program. And it has been astonishing to me how almost immediately, almost as I was going through that process even, but especially once I was finished with it, I just got lit on fire about coaching people. I was like, I really, really want to do this. This is like, everybody needs to know this. And, for the past 17 years, I've coached, I would say, pretty much the entire middle class, the people with lower middle class means all the way to upper middle class means, I would say into, pretty wealthy people. And the one thing that separates, and James and Brian and I were talking about this in the Discord group the other day, one of the things that separates the people who actually, get out of debt and get into a posture where they can start saving and investing and they have like this financial preparedness is this ability to sort of project into the future what their lives could look like. And I think that this is a major problem with the American middle class overall. I get really impatient and really disappointed, and this has been the entirety of my financial coaching career, honestly, is because most of the people that I've coached over the years, they have plenty of money. There was one couple, and these are outliers. There's one couple that I was coaching a couple of years ago, $500,000 in income, and well over $1 million worth of debt. And even just going back to the basics of, helping them get their finances organized, to get on a budget, to track expenses. Because if you're not doing any of that stuff, like, you don't even really have a clue where you are, in your money. So I've always had this it's been a difficult, like I said, as a personal finance coach and a Bitcoiner, I would say up until a few years ago, I became more comfortable talking about and recommending Bitcoin to my clients, just because there's this giant chasm. Bitcoin has endured this, 16-year, negative marketing campaign with, all of the players that, used to, Trump, Jamie Dimon, Charlie Munger, the Berkshire Hathaway guy. I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me. Just calling it rat poison squared, and the major narrative being that it was just a network for thieves and money launderers and all those things. And so it's just been it's made it really difficult for us as Bitcoiners to sort of be legitimized. And I would say over the past couple of years, especially with the introduction of the ETFs here in the U.S., and the fact that the financial services industry and Wall Street is just all in on it now. Even then, we're much more legitimized in the eyes of the world. But even then, it's still such a conversation stopper in polite conversation, because most of the American middle class has been, I would say, propagandized against it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I see that, with Brian and James, what they're trying to do with their platforms as well, is really just trying to bring, these two movements together. I am starting to see, there was a video that I saw probably about 6 months ago, that it wasn't Dave Ramsey, it was a couple of the people on his team that were talking much more favorably about Bitcoin. Still talking about it, in sort of like, I guess you would say, normie terms. But I have even I've had to soften my position on that, because there's a part of me that's a toxic Bitcoin maximalist, which I really, really am trying to eschew all of that right now. But I'm curious, as you're, where are you guys right now? Are you, personal finance? Are you FIRE? Are you Bitcoin? I've run a couple of surveys on my YouTube channel, and I'll probably do that again. And it's a pretty good mixture. So YouTube is telling me that I'm talking to, people between the ages of 25 and 55, which sounds about right, because I would say most of my financial coaching clients over the years have been that. I would say lately it's been a lot of, sort of older millennials and Gen Xers that have kind of gotten bitten by the bug of, getting their finances in order, learning how, getting out of debt, learning how to invest, incorporating Bitcoin, into that plan. So, yeah, so today's video is just, I'm just trying to figure this out alongside you guys. One of the biggest things that my wife and I are trying to do right now is, our stool basically has three legs. There's our high yield savings pile in Bitcoin in self-custody. Then we have, my YouTube channel and my, consulting business. And then now what we're trying to do is very much what we're experimenting with in Brian's community, where we're trying to try to realize income off of Bitcoin using instruments like BTCI or STRC. And so that's what I'm actively doing right now. I do have positions in BTCI, and I'm really just kind of reconfiguring a lot of things. And it's really causing me to think about the Bitcoin that I have in cold storage even right now, which, to the Bitcoin maximalists among us, I'm sure can be an interesting conversation and maybe even draw a little bit of judgment. But like I said, I'm on a mission to figure this out and to bring these two communities together. So whether you're on one side or you're on the other side or you're somewhere in the middle, I want to talk to you and I want to help you do the same thing. So if this it's really helpful to you, I would love for you to join the chat, join the conversation by liking the video, sharing it with a friend, subscribing to the channel, all the things. And I will see you in the next one.